our lunchtime GWPN workshop, and we're introducing Karen Hollenbach this afternoon. And this is a real treat. Karen's been with us now for a couple of years and becoming one of our close friends. She's a global partner and a global friend. She is founding director of Think Bespoke. As a LinkedIn specialist trainer and strategist, she offers a unique perspective on how to get more from your time on LinkedIn. And I tell you, she helped me, and it was really great. So if you want to jump in and let her know you'd like a bit of one-on-one training, she's there for you. Karen worked closely with private, public and government organisations and social enterprises, such as us, we're one of them, across Australia. She co-facilitated the LinkedIn workshop for Monash Business School from 2020 to 22 and has worked with State Library Victoria, Grattan Institute, Dementia Australia, Legal Super and trained the RMIT University Careers team. She's a company director, registered VIT teacher, and holds a graduate diploma of education, Bachelor of Business Marketing, and a diploma of management. It's a pretty big wow. As a digital minimalist, Karen enjoys many analog activities away from the screen, including reading, time in nature, and deep conversations with friends and family. So welcome, Karen. It's so wonderful to have you with us again, speaking this year on how to tell your unique story on LinkedIn. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and thank you so much for having me. So hello, everyone who's with us here today. If you're watching the recording, hello too. If you've got questions after this and you've watched the live recording, please, you've watched the recording afterwards, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or any of the details here that you see on these slides. So Think Bespoke acknowledges the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land in which we work. We pay our respect to the people of the Kulin Nation and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present. Now you can all see my screen okay? Great, we have the technology. Wonderful. So this is me. We had that introduction before, so you don't need to hear more about my LinkedIn expertise. That was a lovely description of my updated bio, and I had to put in the element in there of the digital minimalism, and I'm happy to have that conversation with people about what's digital minimalism.
Yeah,
I deliberately
noticed.
I deliberately have it in there because people assume I spend all my time online, and guess what? One of the great things about LinkedIn is you don't have to. You can be gardening, you can be reading a book. And I hit a personal milestone in June and I read 5 books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm on a goal of 40 for the year. That's quite exciting. So that's not the official stuff, that's the unofficial stuff. So what are we doing today? We're going to talk about LinkedIn's role in helping you build your influence. Oh, thank you, Annette. I really appreciate that. Fellow book lover. I spot a fellow book lover. LinkedIn's role in helping you build your influence, whatever that looks like for you. I always also like to think about it in terms of starting conversations with the people who matter to you and where you're heading in your career, or people who just pique your curiosity and you think it's a conversation I'd like to have. How to uncover your unique career story. It's fair to say I've built a business on how difficult it is to write about yourself. It's quite uncomfortable to talk about yourself, and you get in those situations. It's so funny because when Anne and I first met, it was in this, I'm going to use the word hardcore, Anne. We were at a networking event where you had to sort of do that pitch, and
Yeah.
I felt so, I will be forever grateful for having to sort of take that risk and put myself out there and go to that networking event. I identify as an ambivert, so I'm in between the introvert and extrovert on that sort of continuum. And so to have someone like Anne next to me at an event like that was lovely. But the reason I talk to you about that is you sort of get told you have to know your career pitch. You have to sort of know how to talk about yourself. So the unintended consequence, or maybe it's an intended consequence of today, is that yes, you will explore how to refine and better tell your unique career story on LinkedIn. It will also help you probably in those networking conversations, which I'm yet to meet someone who thrives in that environment. Maybe the deeply extroverted do. And then we'll talk through some structured steps to write your profiles about section. So as a gardener, I really am going to be planting seeds in your mind and in your heart about how you might turn up on LinkedIn. And there is no rush. We are all a work in progress. And you need to sort of take the time you need to take to embrace some of the things I'm shared with you today. So you might hit overwhelm at points, and that's not a deliberate strategy by me. It used to be sort of get people to go, oh, well, I'll just get her to do it. It's more take what you need from the information I'm sharing with you and implement what I'm sharing with you by booking some LinkedIn time with yourself over the course of the next little while. So that might look like 30 days. 30 days, no, it doesn't look like that. That might look like 30 minutes once a week or once a fortnight, but really do book that time with yourself. Otherwise, it'll be on your to-do list for longer than it probably should. And you can ask your LinkedIn questions along the way. So this idea of building your influence or getting into conversations that interest you on LinkedIn, why does that matter? So if you sort of recognizing LinkedIn's role, it can really help you tell your career story, and that's what we're doing today. It keeps you relevant and top of mind. So by turning up on LinkedIn regularly, of course, it doesn't replace in real life connection like we had at the summit. However, we are all having more conversations online. So why not have them on LinkedIn? It's a fairly constructive place if you are sort of surrounding yourself by people who are not necessarily like-minded, but have similar values. Being on LinkedIn and being more active helps you be discovered by others, and we'll talk about what discovery means and what that can look like for you. I love it from a learning perspective. It helps you stay informed of global trends and news. So World Health Organization is on LinkedIn. I remember them doing LinkedIn Lives during the pandemic. United Nations Women are on LinkedIn. Of course, GWPN's on LinkedIn. So it's where you can stay informed. It helps you continue face-to-face conversations online. So of course you can't live on a digital diet alone. It's a place to begin new conversations. So you can reach out to leaders in your industry, follow them, even send them invitations to connect in a genuine, authentic way, not in a networking, there's nothing wrong with networking, not in a salesy, transactional way. And it really also creates opportunities to add value to your community. And that's how I've navigated it for a very long time. I share my insights regularly. I write a LinkedIn newsletter. It's about to have a name change in the next little while. If you go to my profile, Karen Hollenbach, you can see that LinkedIn newsletter. So I'm always sharing really helpful tips. So really, before we do anything around this idea of the unique career story, what you need to be thinking about is really, what is your focus for LinkedIn? And these are two questions that you might like to write down. You might like to screenshot this. I'm more than happy to provide Anne with a PDF version of these slides. So that's fine if you sort of just want to sit and enjoy it. So two questions I want you to consider. What do you want to be known for in the context of the time that you're spending on LinkedIn, and probably across your career and your professional life too? And who are you trying to influence, or what might feel more comfortable for you? I've sort of had feedback from people, I don't want to influence anyone. So, okay, well, who are you trying to get into conversations with? Who are you interested in getting into conversations with on LinkedIn? And I don't mean in a transactional way. I'm going to keep saying that. I mean in a, oh, curious, that's interesting. That looks like a like-minded person, or that looks like someone I could learn from. That looks like a leader in the industry. I'm going to follow them and stay informed about how I could maybe have that role one day. And so by answering these two questions, you're effectively clarifying your career story first, so you know where you're heading. Because there's a lot you could say about all of us. And it's that, what are the things that are relevant that we need to talk about in the context of LinkedIn? It doesn't need to be War and Peace. So I like to bring this concept to life with an example of how I navigate LinkedIn and how I answer these questions. So for me, I want to be known for my LinkedIn expertise. I want to be known for my training, specifically in LinkedIn. And that addition in my bio of the conversation about being a digital minimalist and the importance of analog activities and my love of books is a really important component of who I am. It's also strategic. So what I mean by that is I do my best work with introverts, ambiverts, and highly sensitive people. And I have learnt that over 13 years of business. And so I deliberately show the parts of myself that are meaningful in the context of who I'm trying to influence on LinkedIn. So I don't probably talk about gardening as much because I'm not trying to attract gardeners. There's nothing wrong with people being gardeners, but the book loving and the concept of me talk, you see it on my profile a lot, this concept of quieter and more thoughtful folk really comes through quite strongly in the way I show up on LinkedIn. So profile writing, so the sort of top three are my subject matter expertise, and then really this sort of the way I conduct myself as a human being. So helpful, approachable, and notice that comment, human being, not as a professional. I'm not really helpful in my professional life and terribly unhelpful in my personal life. I'm pretty much the same type of person. And so I'm often mistaken for being LinkedIn help, and I often get LinkedIn messages and emails. I need to close my account down. I've got duplicate accounts. Can you help? And of course, I send them the link to point them in the right direction. So who am I trying to influence and get into conversations with? So as I'm sharing my story and my version of this with you, of course, I'm wanting you to think about what is your version of that, because I'm going to take that thinking into developing your unique career story. So I'm trying to influence or get into conversations with, I just had the dog nudging at my door, quiet and more thoughtful folk. So I am more explicit in some of my writing, and I talk about ambiverts, introverts, and highly sensitive people, but quiet and more thoughtful folk. I don't want to alienate extroverts, right? It's fine to also talk to extroverts if they want to take a methodical, well thought out, strategic, intentional approach to LinkedIn. I'm also interested in getting into conversations with digital marketers, so people who are looking for best practice ways, and best practice is contextual on LinkedIn, depending on your goals and what you're trying to achieve and whether it's for career or business. So training them on LinkedIn, and I'm also interested in HR, L&D managers, because they're the people who book the LinkedIn training. And so for your career, whether you're currently gainfully employed, whether you run your own business, or whether you're thinking about making a transition, this still applies to you, because you want to be thinking about, well, what do I want to be known for and who am I trying to influence? So if you're doing some extra studies, you're thinking about making a career transition, you're wanting to explore certain things, how you approach your about section of your profile and the different sections I'm going to show you, that will come to life in those sections. So it's really being intentional and thinking about these things. So what is a unique career story? It's always good. As a trained educator, I like to break down key terms. And I think also as a mother of a young man who's doing year 12, I spent a lot of time breaking down key terms. He's got his English SAC today, and it's an exploration of 2 different books. So I've spent the last 24 hours exploring the English vocabulary in the context of that. So a career story is really a brief chronological synopsis of who you are. Who am I? It's a big question. What you do and what you do better or differently than anyone else. No, it's not a competition. However, can you feel the way me talking about quieter and more thoughtful folk, you can hear the language that I'm using to describe myself. You can see the pace at which I talk about it. And I have to thank Anne for really helping me open up this part of myself, because about a year ago, she heard me deliver training and she'd seen me deliver 2 types of training. She said, "Oh, Karen, I have to say to you, I really liked the way you were. I liked you." And you didn't say I liked you more. They're never words that have come out of your mouth, Anne. But can you remember the feedback you gave me?
I think it was I connected with you deeply because you were more sensitive and thoughtful, and you weren't afraid of who you were.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better myself. So it's really, I guess, coming to terms. Sorry, that's a bit of a guffaw. Coming to terms with who you are and celebrating that, or at least being more comfortable talking about it. You have to reveal all parts of yourself. LinkedIn's not social media. You shine a light on the things that are relevant to you in the context of the 2 goals that we've talked about. What do you want to be known for? Who are you trying to get conversations with? So unique career story is really a narrative that summarises the value you bring to the table, conveys your passion, and explains why a client or employer should be interested or want to work with you. So they normally follow a logical structure. So there's a beginning. So where have you been? What have maybe you studied? I'd love reading. It's not suitable for everyone, but I really enjoy reading LinkedIn about sections where people talk about sort of something formative that happened to them as a child, or a quote or a reason why they do what they do. That's not for everyone. You can take a more clinical, excuse me, I forgot to put my phone on silent. That's a total byproduct of having a son in year 12. So really think about, where have you been? And just putting aeroplane mode on so that doesn't happen again. He's obviously ringing to tell me how he went in his English sack. Where have you come from? And not just for the sake of telling a story, let's sit down, I'm going to tell you a long story about my life. That's not what we're trying to do. It's only if it's relevant in the context of describing yourself in these terms. So start your narrative by briefly reviewing how you became interested in your career and got started in your field. So what I'm suggesting you do is maybe journal. Have we got any journalers in the house? People who, of course we do. Annette's a book lover, a journaler. So if you're not a journaler and you're just happy to sort of write notes, answer some of these questions for yourself in handwritten notes first. Of course, you can use tools like ChatGPT and stuff. I'm going to give you all those tech options as well. Digital minimalists like tech. We just don't need it to distract us from the bigger things that we're doing. So I'll show you some tech tools that you can use as well. All right, so be journaling, get a copy of these slides, write down the questions I'm asking you, and start writing that for yourself in your 30 minutes of LinkedIn time over the next little while. So the middle section of your career story will ask you to think about, where are you now? So cover your prior roles, your accomplishments and transitions up to this point. So I made a career change, I retrained, I thought I wanted to be this, I went to uni and did this, I changed and did this. I had this great opportunity to travel here, which taught me this. I've had, here's a selection of the types of roles I've had, and this is how they've formed who I am today and what I'm now doing. Stick to high-level information and highlight major chapters and defining moments in your career. And try to keep it relevant. I like to sort of drop in hints of who I am, and you saw me do that at the start, and you'll see me do this the whole way through. And so it's my version of leading by example, and it's my version of also showing, not just telling you what I'm trying to demonstrate in today's session. So at the end, okay, so where are you sort of heading? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to help? Why do you want to help them? So if you're on LinkedIn to get into really interesting conversations with people across the world, say that at the end of your LinkedIn profile. If you're exploring what it means to be a digital minimalist in a noisy, too much going on world, share that. I don't share that specifically, but I'm just sort of giving you that as an example. And include details that describe what makes you uniquely qualified for this. So I don't necessarily mean you have the certifications, but maybe your values or your life experience, your lived experience, or the things that you're passionate about, or passion projects that you've done, or studies that you're midway through, give you that, credibility around why you want to explore that. Now, I know that all just feels it's so fluffy, Karen. What do I actually do with that? How do I write that in my profile? Okay, so here are some questions. I'm not going to go through them in an immense amount of detail. You're going to get a copy of these slides, but to help you craft your unique career story. And so the unique career story is something you're actually going to do off LinkedIn. You're going to write this. You're going to have this sacred time with yourself in this conversation. You're going to answer some of these questions. And I'm going to really enjoy you having that time with yourself. It's invaluable. That is then what's going to form the insights I share with you today about how to showcase your unique career story on LinkedIn. So we have to have a career story and we have to know how to write a unique career story before we can leverage LinkedIn. So there's a list of questions. I'm not going to go through them. You can revisit them for homework. Did we mention there was going to be homework, Anne? I know it is a light lunch and learn, but I'm a teacher. I have to set homework. No, I don't. Oh, I've got a logo down there that shouldn't be there. Any questions about what I've just shared? Also an opportunity for me to take a sip of my lukewarm cup of tea. This is awesome. Oh, thank you. Okay. So how do we showcase? So we've now turned it into an acronym, UCS. How do we showcase? I don't know why I have to use an American accent when I do that, but something to do with maybe the TV shows I watched as a child. So showcasing your unique career story on your LinkedIn profile. So here's how to do it. And I'll give you some examples with my profile. So your images are really important. So your profile photo needs to look like you. And I appreciate the feedback. Oh, I like your new photo, Karen. So since stopping colouring my hair and embracing my natural colour, I got my photos updated. So I hated delivering this section of any training because I wasn't living the values that I was talking about. So the images, for a while. And I had to find a good photographer and the timing had to be right. I hate having my photo taken. I'm a lover of the written word. So images, really think about the profile photo and you'll see the change in my photo. You wouldn't have seen the previous one, but hopefully the photo you see resonates with the person who's talking. It's the same person talking to you today. The background image is a free option. It's available for you to really play with that. So make sure you get copyright-free images that tell a story. Pictures really can tell a story. I'm going to take you through this idea of your headline, how you can embrace that to tell your UCS, the featured section, the about section, which I've already talked about quite a lot, but we'll talk about even more. Your experience section, recommendations, and creator mode, which is not for everyone. And I mentioned at the start, you might get this feeling of overwhelm. It's not my intention. Sort of bite off what you can chew, pick little components of what I'm sharing with you today and bring it to life in your 30 minutes a week. Have I embedded that principle yet? It's a teaching trick, isn't it, Anne? If I say it 3 times, maybe people will do it. All right. Now, a side note about making LinkedIn profile updates. Changes are best made via your desktop and laptop. I know you might say, well, I'm just going to look at my phone. Well, I've got to spare 5 or 10 minutes. That's fine if you want to do that. It's a better experience from your desktop. And I don't mean the app on your tablet. I mean the desktop, logging in to the website. You can make a lot of the changes that I talk about you might already have some of the elements in your profile. It's just a matter of tweaking them. If you don't, you can generally find them in the add profile section. And this is what it looks like. So there's core, recommended, and additional. And I'm just showing you there an example of when you click through, it'll sort of give you the drop down of those different sections. And if LinkedIn's sort of prompting you along the way for things outside of what I've shared with you today, also download my professional profile checklist. So I'll give you the link to that, Anne, after this. So I'll send it through with the slides. In that, I basically say to you, look, these are the sort of absolute key sections of your LinkedIn profile I think you need to fill in. I don't think you need to fill in your birthday. There's things in there that from a privacy and security point of view, I wouldn't be putting on my LinkedIn profile. All right, so a lot of color on this page, deliberate. So key elements of your LinkedIn profile intro card. So this section of your LinkedIn profile is called the intro card. So here's the picture of me. That's a lot more what I look like now. This is a background image that's really consistent with the iconography and photography on Think Bespoke's website. So if you represent an organisation, you're a current employee, you need to maybe talk to your marketing department, or if you are your marketing department, think about giving your team or asking the marketing department for a suite of options for a background image. You actually own your own LinkedIn profile. Unless you've signed a social media agreement with your organisation, you can really put in your background image whatever you want to do, but life doesn't really work that way, and maybe have a chat to the powers that be where you're working. So really they evoke the fact, you can think about what those pictures evoke, what this picture evokes, and it should hopefully be consistent with what I've talked about in terms of my unique career story. So you have 220 characters available to you in your headline. And the really important section of this that tells my unique career story is my expertise. So LinkedIn expert, consultant, and training specialist. That's my focus, what I want to be known for. I talk directly to the people who I want to get into conversations with, helping elevate the voices of quieter and more thoughtful folk. I thought a lot about the word folk. I don't put a single word in my headline that doesn't get through a strict criteria. I'm an educator, I'm a content marketer, writer, speaker, commentator, and there, of course, are my 2 subject matter expertise. So I'm a LinkedIn trainer on LinkedIn. So the profile examples I give you are going to be a bit of a LinkedIn profile on steroids. So don't feel like yours has to be as much. It can be a toned down version of this. So the other interesting things I want to point out to you about this LinkedIn profile intro card that may have jumped out at you that broadly fall within telling a unique career story. If you choose to activate creator mode, which I'm not tackling until the end of the session, you can nominate up to 5 topics that you talk about. So you can see I've added in ambivert, I've added in digital minimalism, because my plan with my LinkedIn newsletter is really to broaden it beyond talking about LinkedIn and to talk directly to my ideal clients. If you have creator mode activated, if there's any consultants or coaches here or people who run their own businesses, this is there are many reasons to activate creator mode, but this is an incredibly powerful reason to activate creator mode, which is a free LinkedIn profile feature. So everything I'm sharing with you is a free feature unless I tell you it isn't. Is that sound all right, Anne? I'm loving it, but can you see me okay? Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, so in here you can put a link. I have sign up to my insights, and it's how people get on my email list to get my regular newsletter. So the newsletter I send via email marketing is probably a little bit more intimate than the LinkedIn newsletter that you can subscribe to, and it also comes out a little bit earlier. And then what might have piqued your interest, which is not so much about your unique career story, but if we've got anyone who's self-employed here or runs their own business, you should also be activating this providing services feature, which is constantly evolving. Now, open to, if you're currently looking for work, this is the spot that you can let recruiters or your whole network know that you're open to work. And it's also where you can let people, you can promote jobs here. There's more involved in that than just clicking a button and promoting jobs. How I would use it is really providing services if you're a consultant or running your own business, or finding a new job if you're open to work. So can you see just in that intro card, you could spend that first half hour just thinking about what your intro card looks like, which is LinkedIn is not something you're just going to tick off your to-do list after today. It's something you're a work in progress. You're going to spend time thinking about this and take the time you need to think about this. So the images, look out for resources from Unsplash or Canva, and make sure you're using copyright-free or approved, it's okay to use images on the background image that you choose. If you click on the little blue icon, LinkedIn will tell you the image specifications. And hopefully most of you know about a wonderful Australian business called Canva that you can also source copyright-free images, and you may have a free or a paid account. So your headline I've talked about, 220 characters. It's also really the thing that follows you around LinkedIn. So it's really important to be mindful of when you're liking and commenting on things. That's how sort of people know what you do. And ever since I've put that quieter and more thoughtful folk, it's started some really interesting conversations with fellow ambiverts, people who are more introverted, and then people will consciously, openly say to me in LinkedIn messaging, I love your reference to quieter and more thoughtful folk. And it can also include a call to action if you want to. So be careful with this one. I sometimes play around with call to action in my headline. So a call to action might look like something like sign up to my e-insights, or book a 30-minute, I've never done this, but I see lots of people do this, book a 30-minute discovery call. Now, if that makes sense for you, if you're an executive coach and you think that feels right for you, put it in your headline. I sort of bounce between thinking that's okay and then also feeling it's a little bit too transactional. So you need to work out what's appropriate for you in terms of your unique career story and your goals for LinkedIn. So we then have the featured section. Now, if you ages ago had a link after your summary in your LinkedIn profile, that would have sort of converted to the featured section of your LinkedIn profile. So if it's been a while since you've tended to your LinkedIn garden, which a lot of people like to sort of whisper or quietly confess to me, your featured section might already be there without you having created it, if you already had a link there. If it isn't, you can go into that add section that I showed you at the start and add it. Now, here's what I want you to think about with this section regards to your unique career story. Just check it's current. Check it's telling the story that makes sense to the conversations you want to be getting into now. The other thing is to link to relevant information. So be careful with information that lapses in time. So you've got an event that you're promoting that you want people to attend, or you've got a community gathering that you're trying to bring people together. If that event has passed, make sure you get it off your featured section. Consider what elements of your unique career story are relevant to showcase. So for a long time, I put, before I ran my own podcast, I have a podcast that's in our 75th episode, the 5-Minute LinkedIn Marketer. Prior to having my own podcast, if I had been in a podcast interview, I would put that in the featured section, because people, when they heard me speak, would get a stronger sense of who I was and what I was like. So if you're in any YouTube videos, or if you're in a podcast interview, or there's a post that a colleague's done that has your whole team together, if there's something that you're really proud of that helps you tell your unique career story, this is the place to put it. But remember, it's right at the top of your profile, so it is going to stand out. And I always think to myself, what do I want people to do as a result of reading my profile? What action do I want them to take? Because I view my LinkedIn profile as my digital version of me. I mean, there's so much more to the in real life version of me, but that sort of digital ambassador, your 24/7 online ambassador. And so please do not include your CV in PDF or your resume, or export your LinkedIn will tell you to do this, and it'll tell you that it's fine to do it. Don't export your LinkedIn profile and think that that's going to be suitable for applying for jobs. Now, the reason I say that is because your LinkedIn profile is not so much general, but it tells an overall story of your unique career story. A resume is or CV is a really specific document that you tailor to every new job opportunity that you're applying for. So I just really like to make that point, because I also think it's lazy. If you're an active job search, I'm just going to put my resume at the top of my featured section. None of you are lazy. So what to do and what not to do. So that's where you find it. Add profile section, add featured. That's how you can add it in. And if you've noticed this top small business voice, it's the strangest thing, and not something I necessarily want you to dwell on. But LinkedIn includes AI collaborative articles. And if you contribute to them regularly and meaningfully, and people vote for your contributions, LinkedIn makes you a top small business voice. So while I'm very happy to have that badge, as a digital minimalist, I've got really mixed feelings around getting a badge from engaging with AI. Anyway, this is the world we live in. Any questions about what I just shared with you?
I have a question. For the provide business service, is that in the creator mode?
No, great question. So you click in Open To, and it will have the option to show that you provide services. And I have an article on that specifically explains how to do it. So I've got 3 resources I'm sending you now. PDF, can you keep track of what I'm saying?
Yes.
PDF of slides, LinkedIn profile checklist, and the article about how to access the providing services. And I'll also send the article about how to, it's written how to decide if creator mode is right for you. Okay. And so you can go to Think Bespoke's website after this, and I have what's called a knowledge base. As a book lover, I also wanted to be a librarian when I grow up. So it's my way of kind of having my own digital library. So you can search in there for all the articles and podcasts. Did I see a little face flash that maybe wanted to ask a question?
First of all, what was the third one I'm supposed to tell you? What was
providing
the third one?
Services.
Providing
Just say
services.
providing services. Yep. Article and creator mode article.
Yep. Okay, got
it. Thank you. Any other questions? They can be unrelated or related. We'll have other pit stops. Okay. So, hardest part of your profile to write, do it last. Do all the other things that I talk about today and sort of build up to this moment. Do it on Word first. I'm going to give you some tech tools that might help you do it. There's a new section of your profile that in this section you can also highlight your top skills. So think about that in relation to what you want to be known for and who you're trying to influence. I've recently sort of tinkered with this. So write in the first person in this about section. That's you writing about you. So in the way I've written here, excuse me, coughing, give the reader a sense of who you are, what you believe, in your credentials. So I sort of took you through those steps. So it's like your overall career story, but I'm going to pull out some specific bits. Then I'm going to show you how to write it. This is not a resume, so I don't want that very dry opening of a professional summary in a CV. I want some sense of who you are as an individual, as a human. And this is your opportunity to showcase elements of your UCS. So where might we do that? I'll show you. And we're going to go through 6 steps to write this because I know it's the hardest part. So I want to hold your hand as you do it. So you've got to do that homework. You've got to know your unique career story. And if you take the time to do that, this part's actually going to be quite easy. And that's why I've really, when I first created this session, I really wanted to make this as easy as possible for people because I feel like I talk about it all the time, but am I really giving you the steps to do it? So hopefully this does. So do that work around what is my unique career story, and just know that the process of you answering those questions and writing them down, it doesn't have to be really well polished. It needs to be you actually answering those questions. So if you do that first, writing this will become easier. Please write like you talk. That is the best way to give someone a sense of what you're like. You want your personality to come through. Something weird happens to people when they start writing about themselves on LinkedIn and they start using all these words that maybe my son used in his year 12 English SAC today that are completely appropriate for that environment, but not necessarily right if we're trying to give people a sense of who we are. Maybe that language is right for your professional summary and CV. Maybe it's contextual for your industry, but I really want to get a sense of your personality. Consider, that's italicized, a storytelling approach. So I mentioned this idea at the start, a quote, something that happened in your early childhood, formative years that informed who you are today and why you're doing what you're doing. Write in the first person and maximize that first line. Because as you saw in the example here, people have to click on see more to read your full about section. And there is no greater place to tell your unique career story than in the about section. We've got 2,600 characters. Showcase the relevant parts of your UCS. I'm going to show you how to do that. And consider how you're connecting your profile dots. We're not going to dwell on this again, but this is the cornerstone. What do you want to be known for? Who are you trying to influence and get into conversations with? Have a picture of them up near you. Have a persona. Really think about that person or that type of person or those people before you write your profile, and it will be an easier process for you to write. Write like you talk. This is exactly how I talk. I help elevate the voices of. In this digital age, you may have discovered that content marketing and personal branding are how potential clients, potential employers and hiring managers will decide if you are for them. This last line is particularly something that comes out of my mouth all the time. The good news is that LinkedIn's not that hard once you know what you're doing. So you're reading that and you're going, okay, I get a sense of what Karen's like. So what's your version of that? And you might like to, and I am completely comfortable with you doing this, copy and paste my about section and then think, what's my version of that? Now, please don't use specific lines and word for word, but really do go, okay, I'm getting the broad framework. And you could do sort of 50% of what I've done if you're currently employed, because as I said, LinkedIn trainer on LinkedIn, it's a bit next level on steroids. Consider the storytelling approach. So write down Alicia Hay. She is the example I'm talking about that talks about her formative years. She's a writer. I have worked with her. I've trained her. And I actually she says, have you been pointing more people to my profile? I'm always pointing people to her profile because I love the way she writes the opening line of her. I like the way she writes the whole about section. So what do you mean by storytelling, Karen? Okay. So the purpose of using a storytelling approach is to make the information or message more engaging, memorable, and emotionally impactful. Now, this is where ChatGPT could come in. So you could write your career story and then say, or write your section of the LinkedIn profile and say, oh, ChatGPT, could you just sell that with a more storytelling? Now, I don't know what sort of a job it's going to do. And LinkedIn's got beta testing this. Write your headline and your LinkedIn profile about section, which I had a look at the other day, and it was so bad. It did not do what I wanted it to do. But I think tools like ChatGPT are really good for brainstorming and thought starters. So they need a human to drive them, but it's definitely something worth thinking about. So the idea of a storytelling approach is that it presents information, events, or experiences in a structured, sequential manner that resembles a story. So I'd just go and have a look at Alicia's if you want an example. I don't write mine like that. The information or message is conveyed through a series of events, settings, and other elements that are typical of a story. So it's harder to write your LinkedIn profile that way, but maybe it feels more natural and it makes heaps of sense for you to write your profile in that way. So I've already mentioned this idea of the about section. Really, the sort of first couple of lines of your about section are really important because people need to click on that read more. And this last point, if you don't take anything else from this slide, because we have already broadly talked about the about section, make what you write about them, not you. And that's why I like the storytelling approach, because you're, come over here, I'm going to tell you a story. This is this human element. And I know it's hard, and I know I'm talking about sort of conceptual ideas, and I'm going to give you some examples that will help you do it. All right. So the final thing is really thinking about, well, how are you connecting your profile's dots? So Anne noticed the providing services. I've pointed out creator mode. I've talked to you about headline images. I've told you about the featured section. This is one of the things I think you need to do. And you'll notice on my profile, I should say this, that I've got a LinkedIn profile video. So I say, hi, I'm Karen Hollenbach, follow me here, et cetera, et cetera. That function is no longer available. As of the 26th of June, LinkedIn, I don't know, shelved it. What do they do? There's a technical digital term for it. I don't know what it is. But if you had it recorded previously, it stayed on your LinkedIn profile. So, hopefully I don't change what I talk about. I don't think I will for quite some time. So what do you want people to, when you look at sort of overall, what am I trying to do with my profile? What do you want people to do as a result of looking at your profile? And so mention this in the about section. So help them navigate information about you. So there's a section in my LinkedIn profile about section which says, here are some resources to help you get started. So people are generally looking at me because they're looking for a LinkedIn trainer, because that's what I want to be known for. And that's what I get referred for. And that's what I share information about. And yes, there's so much more to me than that, but that's fundamentally what I want to be known for. And I'm thinking about the people I want to influence. So I have this section that says, subscribe to my newsletter, sign up to my e-insights, fill in the keynote speaker request form, tune into my podcast. And then I say to people, these resources can be accessed via the featured section above. So just don't, if you're really clear about this stuff, make it even clearer for readers, and you really bring your LinkedIn profile to life in that way. Now, this is an advanced concept. This is where you might be hitting overwhelm. You cannot do this, and it's absolutely fine. You could just do the stuff that I talked about in the intro card. You might not even have an about section. So after today, you might have 3 lines in that about section that you didn't have before today, and that's okay too. You might just, over the next month, take the time to answer those questions around your unique career story. And that may just help you when you're in networking events. That's okay too. And so if we're ever networking on LinkedIn, or if you ever reach out to me, please don't feel like I'm judging you. People will say, oh, I haven't made any of those changes yet. That's okay. We are all a work in progress, and there's long to-do lists. Hate to write? Well, if you're a reader, Annette, do you like to write? Oh, see, this is, so I'm just sort of going C because this is the sort of work I've done on working with my ideal clients. I sort of get a very strong sense of what we do and don't like to do. So if you hate to write, and there are some of us like that for whatever reason, put your profile into private mode. And can we please add that as a resource, how to activate private mode? I'll show people how to do that. And look at other people's profiles and the way they write about themselves. Now, I am not asking you to copy other people's profiles. I'm asking you to look for sources of inspiration. Oh, I really like the way they describe this. Oh, I hate that part of their LinkedIn profile. There is no way I'm going to write about myself like that. Please do that research step, because the way your brain works is that you will read all this information and then sort of walk away. Don't go and write your profile straight away. But it will help you understand how you would like to describe yourself. And in the process of elimination is just as powerful as the process of attraction. So there's also this great HubSpot resource. Now, it's great. It's not how I would necessarily write LinkedIn profiles. But if you're like, Karen, I have nothing in my about section. I am so far away from having anything like Alicia's and yours. I want to find a happy medium. There are some really good examples in here. So take a look, and you might not like them, but you might. And then play with ChatGPT if you want to. I am an advocate of tech that saves you time. All right, so any questions? Okay, so the experience section, and I sort of jumped through, but I want to make sure I cover everything with you today. So in your experience section, I either want you to write nothing or inject a bit of story and context to showcase key elements of your unique career story. So if you're looking at my profile, the one I would point to you specifically after this is I think it was about 8 months. No, it wouldn't even been that long. It was a short period that I worked at Wesley College when I was a training teacher, when I did my postgrad in secondary education. And so in that line, in that description, I tell a story. There is storytelling. That's the sort of the key area of my LinkedIn profile. There is storytelling. I explain what that period of my life did in terms of it was a career transition and informed where I am today. And that is specifically there because people who want to work with me who have done a career transition understand that I've done it, that I am a corporate escapee. I've retrained and I've run a successful consultancy for over 13 years now. So, and success is on my terms, whatever that looks like for me. So I just like to say that because success, people might think, oh, is that 7 figures? So success is a lifestyle where I'm actively engaged in all areas of my life, which includes ringing my son back after this session and saying, how did you go in your English, Zach? All right. So in terms of profile experience, I do want you to check that if you've worked for a certain employer that you've got their organisation listed correctly on LinkedIn. So please take the time to go back in and look at current and previous experience, see if they've got a company page and make sure it's listed properly because that helps LinkedIn know and connect you with other people. Also, this is a new thing that I've only learnt in the last sort of 12 months. If you're in active job search, make sure that you have, whether you're full-time currently or part-time or whatever type of function you're in. So the sort of key things you've got to fill in your LinkedIn profile to signal to LinkedIn that you get picked up in search. So that's sort of not so much about your unique career story, but something to know about this experience section. And your skills can now be attached to your experience section. So how do you write this? All right, so you might say, in this role, I am responsible for, or I was responsible for, my key responsibilities included and some of your key achievements. So you can see this format in my LinkedIn profile. So have a look at how I've written it with some of my previous roles. So you don't have to do so much storytelling. I gave you that small example from Wesley. The rest is just highlight the key achievements that are relevant to what you want to be known for and who you're trying to influence. I do not want a cut and paste of your position descriptions. That is boring. I want a summary of what you did. And this is the format I want you to use. Please. That was very directional, but it will save you a lot of time. Also, your recommendation section of your LinkedIn profile. And can I also add I'm going to give you the article, How to Request Recommendations. Really helps verify elements of your unique career story. So don't just ask people for recommendations. Say something like, hi, can you please give, via LinkedIn, you've got to be a first degree connection, read the article. Can you please provide some feedback specifically around whatever it is you want feedback on? Or if someone gives you some great feedback via email or verbally, and you are a first degree connection, say to them, thank you so much for that feedback. How would you feel about giving me a LinkedIn profile recommendation? I can even write it for you if that's easier. Like if they've said it, if they've already said it to you, or you can cut and paste it from the email. So people need a little bit of hand holding for this step. Don't expect that you're going to flick off a recommendation and they're instantly going to do it for you. I generally feel like you've got to pick up the phone and go, hi, you know how we talked about doing that? Do you have 5 minutes now? Do you want me just to talk you through it? And I know that is so uncomfortable. It's worth doing because this is your social proof. People, you can say anything you want about yourself on LinkedIn. Imagine if it's verified by leaders who've employed you, that you've been on boards with, that you've done voluntary programs with. Imagine if they're openly, publicly saying how fabulous you are. That just boosts, like this big boost on your LinkedIn profile. And I'm sure you've all got examples of that. Okay, creator mode, last but not least. I've talked about it a little bit. Highlights the featured section, highlights the featured why have I got highlights featured? Oh yeah, your featured section's highlighted, the activity that you've engaged with on LinkedIn, not just everything, and your own content sort of comes up first. So it prioritizes your content. You can call out those hashtags, which I've mentioned, and it also gives you access to additional tools. This is an advanced feature. So I know I did say right at the start when I showed you that intro card, if you're running your own business, put at the very least, put that link in. Yes, do that. But in terms of activating hashtags and using all the creator tools, that requires a strategy. So I am available for LinkedIn Power Hours to help you through that. So if this piques your interest, scroll down your LinkedIn profile when you're on desktop. You're going to see resources. There's creator mode. Click it on and you'll get to choose all of these things. Now you can choose you don't have to nominate a topic, and then you've clicked it on. You can go into this little grey pencil here and you'll notice that there's some extra contact details there and you can put in that little link. Free. Do it if it's relevant to your goals for LinkedIn and part of telling your unique career story. So I think that's it. Have we got any other questions, either about what we covered off today? We've got a bit of time, what we covered off today, or just any burning questions you might have around LinkedIn. Hello.
We probably will have after we work on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Well, do come back to me. I'm more than happy for you to reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask your question. Annette, what about you?
I had a question about creator mode and follow versus connect. What are the advantages of follow versus connect?
Great question. Now, this is what I cover, and I will answer it, but this is what I cover off in how to decide if LinkedIn creator mode is for you. So I'm going to answer this through a story. I like the option. So what Annette's talking about, if people aren't clear about what she means, is if you activate creator mode, it means when I go to Annette's profile and she's in creator mode, it will prompt me to follow her versus sending her an invitation to connect. Now, Annette, depending on my membership and my settings, I can actually click to the right-hand side and still send you an invitation to connect. But a lot of people don't know that. So they tend to defer to the follow. So for someone like me, I think I had about 9,000 followers at the time, and I was getting lots of sort of spammy invitations to connect. Moving over to the follow option meant that if I saw someone followed me, I could then go back and kind of go, oh, hi, Annette. Thanks. I've recognized you from the lunch seminar we did. Thanks for your great questions, and send you an invitation to connect. So it means I have sort of slightly more control. And this is where I say to people, be careful about activating creator mode, because if you're in that sort of building your network, and people talk about this weird magic, it's not magic, 500 number. I've got to get to 500 connections. I'm like, why do you need to get to 500 connections? Like, what does that even mean? There's definitely advantage in having more connections on LinkedIn. And I don't love numbers games, but I understand why people want to do that. So if you're sort of in that building stage of building your network, you maybe don't want to make it harder for people to connect with you. But Annette, if you had 200 connections and you decided, I'm going to share a helpful tip once a month, or I'm going to activate a LinkedIn newsletter, I love the idea of a LinkedIn Live, you're going to instantly get a whole lot more followers. And you can then I just feel like it gives you more control. You can then turn around and go, oh, is that an interesting person that I want to have a conversation with? But people will only be inclined to follow you if you are creating content. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Beautifully. Thank you.
Great. So I can see people are dropping off now. It's the end of lunchtime. They're going to go and have a comfort stop before they go back to work. Are there any other questions? No, I think that's it. I think we're done.
Yes, we are. Okay, so